in daylight operation by a federal task force called North Star Fugitive Task Force. He was shot in front of his date, who was with him. The police said he was a murder suspect. That was a lie. The police say he reached for a gun and produced a gun. Seems like that was a lie. Immediate reaction from the public, from the community, was to protest for days, for weeks. There was a protest site up here at Girard and Lake. There was a car attack that I just brought up. Deanna Marie was killed. She was 32, I believe, 31 or 32. She was a white lady. Basically killed for fighting for black lives. And then the police cleared the area 2 days later. And after they cleared it, 7 Points, the owner of this property, brought in mercenaries and security groups to be their security. They started acting like the police, maybe even a longer extension of the police, utilizing their military background, and started to create dossiers on the protesters, along with brutalizing and arresting some. Good. How are you all? Well, any of y'all want to talk at all about Winston? Yeah?
My mom watches also.
That's good, yeah, for sure. Your mom watches? Hey. Huh?
My brother be talking to you.
Oh, really? Who's your brother?
His name is Lance, but I think he probably knows as knowledge, maybe.
Oh, word?
Yeah, he's
Okay.
one of the Panthers.
Oh, yeah. All right, who wants to go first? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Winston Smith, 2 months today. What has this been for you? You can talk about it however you want to talk about.
When I think about Winston Smith's death, I think about when I first heard about it. It was literally the day that George Floyd Square got terrorized by the state. And then hearing about Winston Smith's death just put another toll on my on the community's backs, you know, like this was a very impactful death. And then the day after, you know, like seeing his daughter, you know, cry for her father, like that's a different type of pain. Like she cannot see her father ever again. He cannot walk her down the aisle. He cannot, you know, do the stuff that a father should, teach her how to ride a bike, teach her how to be her, you know, and she can't ever have that back because of what the police did. And that's something that puts a lot of effect on the black community, especially. It's like the police has a target on our backs, and Winston Smith was assassinated, and we're here standing on Lake and Girard holding space for him because this is what we need to do. Like, this is what needs to happen. Yeah.
You said police have put a target on black folks' backs. Can you talk about that, what it means? You talked about even for the black community to see how Winston Smith was killed in such a brazen daylight killing.
Yeah.
Like, what does it all mean for you specifically as a black woman?
Specifically, yes,
Or
like
black femme, excuse me.
black film. Yep, thank you. It just makes me afraid for my future. It makes me afraid for my kids' future, what they go through. We do have a target on our backs from the police, from the system, from basically everybody in this world. Like Tupac said, this is a white man's world and we're just living in it. Like, we have a target on our backs. And Winston Smith, he was innocent. He was a happy person. He was very funny. Like, he did skits on his Instagram and stuff like that. And he would always just be walking down Uptown. It's just so sad. Like, he even talked about like his death, his like opinions on Dalal Eid and how he felt about his death. And like, for him to just be on Uptown and get murdered in Uptown, slaughtered in broad daylight by feds, like, that just puts another different meaning to it. Yeah.
What would you like to see move forward with this? The police haven't given any answers, really. They're pretty mum on their words, and
Right.
It seems like they're not going to give many more answers because it's a federalized task force. They were working undercover, blah blah blah.
Blah blah blah
What
blah.
do you hope to see come from this?
Blah blah blah. I want to see No more police reform. You can't do no more police reform. They've been doing police reform for the last hundreds of years. Police was actually built off slavery. They were slave catchers, and they're still doing that still to this day. So we need to abolish the police. We need more community. Community is where it's at, okay? Community is where it's at. We need more people in our neighborhoods helping us, not policing us, helping us, the community. Because if that would have happened, Winston Smith would still be alive today. So that's what needs to happen. Stellas need to release footage. Stellas, all these cameras right here need to release the footage because they know what happened. This is a cover-up. That's why we out here, to stop the cover-up. The police know what they did, and was done in the dark will come to the light. You know, they doing their investigation. So when they investigate correctly, all that information gonna be spoiled, and we will see what the MPD, KKK, will have under the rug. So yeah.
What is this last question for you? Thank you. Well, you don't have to answer this.
Oh yeah, of course.
There was the guard, and there was consistent protests here. 2 months, basically, for about a few weeks straight.
Yeah.
What was your life like during that time?
It was very hectic. I was here when Diana Marie was murdered. I seen a lot of things. It's still very hectic when it comes to stuff like this, but this is what I have to do. This is the duty to fight for my freedom, and I have to be on the front lines for my community, whether it's hectic or not. This is who I am. This is the life that I want to pursue. I want to get into law. I want to make change, and this is for Winston. This is for all the stolen lives. So I could care less about. I care about my mental health, and I obviously take it one day at a time, obviously. But at the end of the day, this is for racial injustice, and it's time for us to stand up. Like Sam Cooke said, a change is gonna come.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Of course. Yeah,
Thank you for telling the truth.
Yeah, hey, thank you for telling the truth.
YouTube stream got
Yeah?
Your YouTube stream got cut.
Oh, what? One second.
I feel like she did all that.
Really?
I don't know what else.
Violating community guidelines.
I feel like
Once again, the suppression.
you got cut for violating community guidelines.
Evidently. Yep. All right. That's fine though. That's just YouTube. We're live on the other ones. Yeah, you want to talk?
Sure.
You can talk about whatever you want, or I can ask you questions. How you doing?
Feel free to ask me questions.
All right. What does this mean to be 2 months after Winston Smith was killed, to be right here, also at the site of Deanna Marie's death?
I mean, it's a humbling experience for anybody. It just reminds me that, and every time a black person is killed by the police, it reminds me and other youth that look like me, that black lives are expendable to the city of Minneapolis, to the state of Minnesota, to the United States. Just that every time something bad happens to us, that it's not that big of a deal, that we aren't as valued as other lives, and we are the global majority. All people of color, we're the global majority, and I feel like just because that every time we see a black life get murdered, we have to explain to kids, and we are kids ourselves, like we have to explain to kids what's going on. Why don't we feel safe in our communities, in the communities that we built, that we created? Yeah,
that's a lot. Talk about this protesting this. There was a lot of youth that did come out right after Winston Smith was killed. Obviously, that was coming off of the years of, the wildest uprising that we've seen. But talk about the youth involvement, and why is it important for you, even as a youth, to be out here?
it's because this is my future. I mean, I don't plan on being in Minnesota. I want to grow and expand my horizons, so I don't plan on being here for too long. But for the time being, I am the future. People who are younger than me are the future. Me and my friends, we are what's to come, and we are right now. So it's like, if we don't do anything currently, what would be the point of us doing anything 10 years from now, 5 years from now, next year? And it's just like, I feel like the youth have always been the forefront of the revolution. Since the civil rights movement, since Jim Crow laws were put in place, the youth have always been the forefront of the movement. And even like children's marches, it's about the children. It's about the kids to come after us, the kids right now, that we want them to live better than we did. I don't want my kids to grow up thinking that, the police don't like me, and like the person who spoke before me said, it's not we don't want the police anymore. It's not about reforming the police. You can't reform a system that was put in place to kill you. You can't fix something that was put in place to only destroy, to simply tear apart and dismantle. And that's why the youth are out here, because we are the phoenix rising from the ashes, basically. There we go.
We heard just a minute ago there's the idea that your friend,
Mm-hmm.
they brought up, look, maybe reform isn't the option. Maybe abolishing the police and putting that money into the community.
It is.
What is your thoughts around that?
I believe that it definitely needs to get put into the community, because we need, instead of officers in schools, we need more therapists. When I was younger, growing up in elementary, middle school, we had one social worker. In a school community of 300 or more children, one social worker cannot help solve the emotional trauma that so many kids have been through, so many young black children have been through. One social worker is not going to cut it. In high school, I went to look for my social worker. They didn't even know who my social worker was. They had to look through their entire file of, I don't know how many kids we had, like 600 kids in that school, a private school. Even private schools with money, they don't have funding to put in social workers in place. And I'm going through something they have to look through. It takes me 20 minutes. I already done wanted to kill myself by then. Like, and there's so many different resources for mental health, for homelessness. There's so many people who are houseless out in this community, and you look around and you're like, wow, if all this bullshit right here that they just wanted to refix the community, or whatever crap they just spewed to the news outlets, this could be housing for people who don't have any. This could be a resource. This could be a community center for kids who live in this neighborhood. This could be like, and it looks so nice out here, and like when you're looking out here, you're like, oh, this is a nice little neighborhood. 3 blocks that way, it's a crime-riddled neighborhood. Like, just because it looks nice doesn't, everything that glitters ain't gold.
In terms of Winston Smith, what do you hope to see happen with this case?
I hope to see transparency and accountability, because that's all we've ever been asking for. Every time someone's murdered by the police, that's all we've been asking for, is transparency and accountability, not a cover-up, not a, oh, but he was. It's always followed by a, but they were, but somebody they knew was a criminal. They were a criminal. It doesn't matter what you did. Then if that's the case, justice needs to do what justice is put in place to do, to serve, to do what the system is supposed to do, and not murder someone. You shouldn't be the judge, jury, and executioner for one person. It shouldn't take an entire task force of unmarked cars to apprehend one person, and they didn't apprehend him. He was murdered. And that's all we're asking for, is transparency and accountability.
Do you feel like after George Floyd's murder, where there was some accountability, that was a sign of things to come, or you feel something different?
I feel like I honestly feel like it only happened because of the push from the community and the outside sources. Celebrities knew about what happened. I mean, celebrities always know about what happened, but like, there was such an outcry from the world seeing what happened, to the point where there was no way you couldn't be accountable for something like that. There was no way you couldn't be transparent, because we seen what transpired. And I feel like it was almost just to pacify us. Like, oh, well, George Floyd was murdered by the police, and you see Chauvin was put in prison. No, we need every cop that has ever murdered the police. For all the Tamir Rices and Tatiana Jeffersons and Ayanna Joneses and Breonna Taylors, and the list goes on and on. We need justice for all of these children. Like, all of these black people, all of these people of color. Like I said, the global majority. We are not just people of color. We are out here. We're the global majority. When you look around, you see more of everyone than you see of white people, and that's what pisses people off.
Do you feel like that could change as the future goes on, with the youth taking realms in some tables where it was just older white folks? Do you think that could change, or that possible integration within the system could be detrimental?
I believe that it needs to be, the youth need to be included. Because, like I said, we are the future. We are what is to happen and what is happening now. And so that means that we need to be included in these spaces. And whether you want to include us now or you want to include us next year, we're going to be included. You don't have a choice. There's not a can we, it's here we come. And I believe it'll help the community. I believe that because we are becoming included in situations that are bigger than just what's going around us, I believe that we are going to create the change, and that once we are included, the change will happen.
Anything else you want to say?
Justice for all stolen lives. That's all.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. I feel like October, like last October maybe. Snowden's released some bail or something. Yeah, okay. You want to talk about it? Thank you, ladies. My mom told me to stop being up front. Stop being up front? Oh, don't be up front. You want to talk about it? All right, you all. Right over here is some of the We Push for Peace folks. The person in the middle is not, but the other people are. We're going to do a quick walk through and then take the stream down. Give me a second. I need to keep maneuvering this microphone, so I apologize for all of these stops. So you see that? Stop the cover up. Winston Smith Collective. Winston Smith was killed last month, June 3rd. 2 months ago, excuse me, June 3rd. Winston Smith was 32 years old. He was eating at Stella's Fish Cafe when he texted or he sent a message on Instagram saying that he was eating there. 30 minutes later to an hour, he was ambushed and killed by unmarked plainclothes officers from a federal task force called North Star Fugitive Task Force. They were deputized sheriffs that killed him. Since then, there's been consistent protests up here. There's also been a consistent police response and also a car attack. And just a lot of things have happened. Right now you see all of the concrete that's blocking that once public road that was placed there in response to the protest, in response to the Winston Smith and Deanna Marie garden that was placed for a community to gather and to grow community and grieve the loss of Winston Smith as well as Deanna Marie, who was killed by a car attack sort of right where we are looking at. On that parking ramp is where Winston Smith was killed, that parking ramp in the background. Oh yeah, no worries, thank you, yeah. So there has been no real information. Sorry, I'm trying to check out a message. There's been no real information updates that the police have been giving, the police have given to the community. They've basically said that it was an undercover. It was a task force, a federalized task force. The two officers that killed Winston Smith are working undercover, so they won't release their names. One of them was from Hennepin County Sheriff's Department, and the other one was from Ramsey County Sheriff's Department. Since the killing, there was a lot of fallouts within those sheriff's departments and other other agencies that were attached to North Star Fugitive Task Force that was run by the U.S. Marshals. a lot of the discrepancies and fallout came when people were questioning the body cameras and the non-use of body cameras. Basically, U.S. Marshals all of the marshals in the task force were not using body cameras, and basically many people say the reason why that was because they were told not to and that they couldn't. Ramsey County took their sheriffs out. I believe Hennepin and Anoka also took their sheriffs out of the task force afterwards in response to the discrepancies and the trauma or the drama. The community acted quickly in response with protests dealing with the trauma, not the drama. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's a question. I'm going to shoot you another email. I talked to you about Robin's event.
Yeah.
Do you know? You don't have to give me any answers.
Yes, I do know. I'm going to be in New York. And
Yeah.
I really, I saw it. I'll respond. But
Sure,
yeah, I
sure.
can't make it.
Do you know anyone else that you think might be interested that is sort of...
I'll hit people up.
Okay, that'll be awesome.
Yeah,
All right, awesome.
sure.
Yeah, thank you.
So again, people have gathered here for weeks. Some of the remnants of the first protest is up here. The police probably brutalized and injured maybe a few dozen people. There was a few dozen arrests as well. There was some unrest the first night. Some stores got broken into and ran through. There was also situations where the police responded with lasers. So they came on the scene and they shone their green lasers that were on top of their rifles at the protesters. That was a first. They also put a spit bag over one of the protesters who was from Camp McGeezy, who was arrested. Camp McGeezy is a water protective camp up north Minnesota going against Line 3. They were standing in solidarity with Winston Smith after he was killed, and the community here in Minneapolis after Winston Smith was killed. Multiple of their camp mates were arrested, especially that first night, I believe, and that was where one of them had a bag put over their head. A spit bag. We are unsure if that person was spitting at them or what. Beyond that, there's been numerous people that have faced charges. Then there was a whole situation where you have CRG. Well, I'll bring up the community groups. We Push for Peace is one of them that's up here, uptown. And I think one of their folks is right here. I'm not too interested in getting any interview with them, but maybe at some point we will. So some people don't like them and the response that they have and that they do out here with the community. They look at them as being hired by the city, therefore working with the police and the city to quell protest movements. The side of it from the city is that, along with the those are like violence prevention groups, along with the city police that have been maneuvering themselves around this area. Then you have 7 Points, the property owners who hired the security group CRG, and now it seems like they're not going to continue with CRG and they might be moving with Recon Protection. We interviewed one of the members from Recon Protection earlier today. They told us that they were taking over today and that they did not know any of the information about the past troubles that CRG was having. They had read a little bit, or they had heard a little bit in the last couple hours, but hadn't really known beyond that. So that is sort of an update from here. We're in uptown Minneapolis, Lake and Girard, right here in the corner. This is folks that have gathered for a Stop the Cover-Up 2-month commemoration for Winston Smith, who was killed by a federalized task force on top of that parking ramp 2 months ago today. He was a comedian, he was a rapper, he was an entrepreneur, and a father of 3, and a loved one by a lot of people in the community who are missing him dearly. The police have come out and said originally that he was a murder suspect. He was not. Corporate news reported that he was a murder suspect. He was not. The police said that he had a gun. His date, who he was with when they killed him, said he did not. Oh, wow. So we had a we had our live stream on YouTube get kicked off stream. They said this stream that was just live on this event, if you're watching on YouTube, it was the last one that got stopped. They said it was because of community standards violation. So we sent them a question, and they said that they wanted to let us know that their team thinks our last stream violates their firearms policy. So the only reason why they could come up with that is based on the discussion that we had with the person who was armed as part of recon protection. Beyond that, we did not see any other folks that were armed besides recon protection in the CRG group. So interesting. YouTube continuing their ways of stopping our streams, putting blocks and content advisories on them, and age restricting and whatnot. But hey, if you were on any of the other feeds, you'd be able to see it. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. So again, thank you all for tuning in. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. Thank you for Chris for running the back end. If you want to know more information about Winston Smith, Deanna Marie, or the killer who killed Deanna Marie, check out our website, unicornriot.ninja. We also have some articles that specifically talk about some of the protests that have been happening here and some of the responses by the city officials and workers for the city. So again, thank you all. We had last thing, we had a press conference that we covered. Not we had a press conference, there was a press conference that we covered up here 2 weeks ago, specifically regarding the CRG mercenary group that was hired by 7 Points, who owns this property, to protect the area. And it was specifically, we heard from a person who was arrested by one of them, and we heard also that one person who was beat by a CRG member actually had pretty traumatic injuries. So check that out on our website at the live archive. Check that out on our website at the live archive. So again, thank you for tuning in. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. We're going to take stream down. Thank you, Chris, for running the back end. And again, we'll have more information about Winston Smith and some of the other happenings up here in the next few. And then also we got some other specials coming out. We just dropped a piece on Rojava and the origins of the PKK. And then we also have a few other pieces that are coming up real shortly in the next couple days. So again, thank you all for tuning in. If you like our work, we are a 501c3 nonprofit media organization, and we are only able to do this because of your all support. So thank you all for that support. If you have financial ability and you want to continue to support us in that realm, we take monthly donations. Recurring micro monthly donations are really good for us, as well as one-time in cryptocurrency and checks and all that stuff. So find that information on our website, unicornriot.ninja. All right, you all, have a good day and a good rest of the week. Peace.